So the Chapter 11 task is I'm supposed to write about one of three people, either a slave, a young maiden, or a warrior. And quite frankly, I did warrior last time. I forget which culture it was for. But slave sounds really fun. Slave wasn't on the docket last time, so I think we should do slave. Now I know the city was said a lot. I don't know how to pronounce it. Tenochtitlan. Everyday life. One of the in the History Channel video, it showed the buildings they were making and how they would make them, having your materials strapped to your back, on your back, but it was you were using something that was wrapped around your forehead. And so when that's about, sorry, my eczema is acting up. My everyday life would be carrying these things up and down all day, doing as my owner would need. Mainly that, depending on the temples, depending on what buildings I would need. Using that would be able to help me in a majority of my day's work. If anything, I would want to be a slave to work my way out of debt. That was a very common topic that I at least saw. Next question goes on to see what impressed you about the city, the work that I would have done. It'd be great monumentous temples that I would be building with me and my fellow brethren. Those things would be divine buildings for the time and this everything has been going on. What I find repugnant about the culture, what I would find repugnant, there's not as much honor. In further research in this, if a man is to own slaves and he is to die, his wife could remarry slaves. And I see this as a very oh no. This means the wife could have been doing some with these slaves. And that's not very good. So, and that's just more of a personal bias of what I would think about the culture. Though about the city, it would still be a very new city. I wouldn't find it as repugnant, although certain acts of the culture of the maidens I would not enjoy. Would you act the arrival of Spanish conquistadors and the fall of the city? I would feel despair, knowing that. Two things: despair and freedom. If I was to get away, despair in the fact that these men are out to kill, and they don't see me as a person. They still would see me as a slave, and so I would try to take that and run. If my owner's killed, I'm running. I'm fleeing somewhere to start a new life. And though that freedom has to start with despair, has to feel with fear. That's really what I would feel. As once that did happen, Cortez, he did some nasty things, I will say. I don't have much to say. Much more. I know a video could kind of defeat the purpose of this. If I was to roleplay this out, it wouldn't be very friendly. But I think... what do I think of the city? I would think it'd be impressive. It was one question missed, the first one. It would be impressive as it's such a new and modern city, and I'm the one building it. I would eat very common things in the culture. Probably wouldn't get as much as other people, but I would eat lots of corn. Corn is still a very popular thing in this time period. Excuse me. It was really discovered in this time, and it was spread very widely in this time, and it soon would be used as trade. So corn would be a very popular dish for me to eat. I wouldn't suspect a slave, especially as a character that would be in debt, to be eating much meat, as meat is still you eat meat because meat is good and it'll fulfill you. So I see myself eating more inexpensive foods, more cheap foods, certain things like that. I think I covered. Oh, that's the syllabus. I covered all the questions. yeah, slavery is still a bad thing, though this one, how it's been up, isn't as terrible as what we have done in the Americans. Um, yeah. That's all I've got. I'll see you next week, Professor.